And welcome to our show, Team2.
Two is better than one.
My name is Dr. Harrison,
And I'm Kathleen.
and we are here today as your host for this show. And we want to continue what we left off on the last episode on conflict resolutions. We spoke about effective communication as being number one in marriages and relationship that couples tend to separate or file for divorce. Today, we're going to talk about the second biggest cause for relationship problems, and that is financial stress and disagreements.
Yeah, disagreements regarding financial stress.
Yeah, disagreement regarding financial stress, but financial stress in general. I remember, we got married in 1990. That's a long time ago.
Long time.
And at that time, I was working as a drywall taper. And I was making all this money, and I actually had a saving account of over $10,000, and I hid it from Kathleen because we were raised very differently.
Yeah, we were. And coming from different backgrounds, and he didn't tell me about this after we're married. After we're married, I don't know, a couple months, 6 months or so.
No, it wasn't quite 6 months.
Before he shared it with me. It wasn't a big deal for me, but it was something that we realized that we shouldn't keep hidden from each other.
So one of the things that we need to understand is whenever there are problems, you always need to ask the question, what is the cause of the problem? And so when I met Kathleen, she was, and still is, a very beautiful woman, but we would go out, and being raised in two different cultures was a big problem in terms of how we handle conflict in general.
Yeah.
When I would go shopping, I would look for things that were marked down, or I would weigh out my pros and cons, and a lot of times I would be saving versus buying simple things like going out for with friends. Kathleen, obviously, she would grab a burger or coffee, and I'm thinking to myself, I can make food at home and I can make my own coffee. Why do I have to spend $10, $20 on food? And so when we were dating and seeing how life was very different in terms of our spending habits, that became a big problem. So when I started to save money, I did not relate to her. I think maybe 3 months later, I said, hey, by the way, I have $10,000. And I remember having that conversation.
I spent it all in a week. No, I was kidding.
I remember having that conversation, and it didn't go too well because it showed that I did not trust her. So I got married, hid money from her, because my perception was that she was more of a spender than a saver. And a lot of couples deal with those problems, maybe not to the extreme of hiding those things, but even though we had opened up a joint bank account, because a lot of couples still take ownership of it's my money, my job, everything is mine. But one of the things that you have to understand is that when you get married, your mind become us and we. So it's no longer you and I, it's us and we. And it shows how two people can become one when they merge their life together, not just their physical body, not just their soul, but also they have to merge everything, including their finances. Because finances is the number 2 in relationship breakup. I think there's about 30 to 40% that was estimated that couples identified from that 886 couples. The research was done that says finances is one of the big struggle.
And I think a lot of it has to do, like you mentioned, culture, how we're raised. I was the youngest in the family, excuse me, and I got not away with things, but
You got spoiled.
I got a little bit more spoiled, and my husband was the oldest in the family, so he had to take more responsibility. So I think that played a big difference in when we first joined in our relationship about finances. So it was something that we really had to work towards and adjust, and it took a little bit.
Well, it's not just that, but when we got married, we were very young, and so micromanaging was one of my strengths, and it's not a good strength to have. Micromanaging is not good in relationship, and what that simply meant is that when we go grocery shopping, I felt that I would do better buying groceries and looking for deals versus Kathleen just going and picking up whatever, like maybe brand name stuff. I would look for cheap stuff. And then if things were on sale, which is very funny, I would buy everything that's on sale, everything on the shelf, whether it's 10 or 15 items, because I think, wow, 50 cents for a can of tomatoes, where now that same can of tomatoes is probably like $2.
Right, but it was probably expired too.
I don't know if it's expired in the grocery store, but my point is that I became very anal in terms of every penny being spent. And when the grocery bill would come in, I would look at the grocery bill, and if there were any, say for example, even if it were 5 cents or 10 cents that we felt got robbed, I would go all the way to the grocery store to get 5 cents and 10 cents. I laugh about it now because sometimes it's a $5 and I don't really care. And the reason for that is because I've learned to mature in finances, and I don't look to man for the finances, but I look unto God, because God has brought us through some really tough times in terms of the financial world we live in.
Yeah.
You're shaking your head.
I'm agreeing with you.
You're agreeing with me. I just thinking about even like the stretch of faith and believing for the bigger things is very difficult. But finances was one of the biggest problem that we, I would say, we struggled with.
It's a challenge, yeah.
It was a challenge because I used to question Kathleen with every bill, every spending she had. I would question it, and I don't know how you felt, but when I look back today, I felt like I was a control freak.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree.
Well, we don't go back on the feelings of the past anymore.
No, but we learn from it.
We learn from it.
We learn from it. And I think couples who are watching us, they probably have some of those financial struggles and wondering, like, today's tip, we're going to talk about the 90-10 rule in conflict resolution. So they're probably wondering, what is the 90-10 rule? And we're going to bring that to them very shortly. But if you are going through financial struggle and don't know how to deal with it, perhaps your husband or the wife, one of you are the more dominant one in terms of taking care of finances. I think we have learned with years that finances the enemy can actually use that as a stronghold to destroy marriages.
Right. And I think also in the time now where we're living, where a lot of both spouses have to work, or maybe someone has to stay home for take care of a sick relative or children or whatever's going on in the home. Sometimes we feel like, yeah, I'm not equally contributing to the finances in the home. And that can be a stressor as well. Because maybe we've raised where both are working and the other one wasn't. So then we also have to work on that, the unequal contribution. It can be a big thing.
We have had friends who say the husband's working or the wife is working, and the other one felt like a slave because they felt they could not be part of the funds that were coming in because they were not working, and that causes conflict. But again, we have to come back to the fact that when you get into a relationship and you get married, it's no longer about me and I, it's about us and we. And I think a lot of couples have failed, in that area in terms of how we can work through the financial struggles that individuals encounter.
Right.
I know one of the things that we need to remind ourselves is that regardless of what financial stresses you're going through, you have to be able to maintain a heart that everything that you have comes from the Lord, that you don't look unto man for those things. I mean, imagine that in our younger age, we were paying rent at $273 a month, all included, utilities. And we moved to the city of Toronto, and we bought a house, and our mortgage was $1,700 a month, and my income was $22,000 a year. And with that, we had 7 children, and we were pastoring, and we were also running a Bible school. And I would tell you, sometimes I look back and ask myself, like, how did we manage our finances in terms of not having a lot? We argued a lot about it. We fight a lot about it because there wasn't really a lot of finances coming in. But we were very faithful in making sure that we continue sowing seeds unto the Lord. We didn't cheat God in terms of finances. So, but with the conflict that was coming at that particular time, we had to learn some principles. And the principle we want to share in this show today is about the 90-10 rule. But we're going to take a break, and we're going to be right back with you shortly to continue today's program.
At Team 2, we believe in the power of connection. Because 2 is always better than 1. Through therapy, workshops, and retreats, Team 2 gives couples the tools to heal, grow, and build lasting love. Join us in saving relationships, strengthening families, and restoring hope. Donate today, because love is worth fighting for.
Love is a journey, not a destination, but a discovery. At Team 2, we walk with you every step, guiding love forward. Here, every story matters, and every step forward brings light to love. Because stronger connection is the heart of every lasting relationship. Connect with Team 2 today, because 2 is better than 1.
And welcome back. 2 is better than 1. I love that. And that means 2 is better than 1 in every area of our lives. And as we talk about finances, there are healthy ways of how you deal with financial struggles in the relationship, and there are unhealthy ways. And unfortunately, I would say the majority of people lean towards the unhealthy way in dealing with finances.
Right, and unhealthy can be, like we mentioned a little bit earlier, is separating your finances. Like, this is my money, this is your money, and our money is not there. That concept is not there.
Yeah, and another unhealthy way is if I decide to buy a new shirt, and then Kathleen says, well, if you get a new shirt, I will get a new shirt. So we're not looking at the financial aspect of the cost. We're looking more on a competition of I get this and you have to get that. And that's really not what marriage is all about in terms of taking care of your finances.
Another one is buying things that you don't really have the money for. So buying things on credit or loan or line of credit or credit card, using all those different ways to spend when you don't really have the money to spend it.
I think one big unhealthy thing is for individuals who believe that, and I used to be guilty of one of those, is you go shopping and things are on sale and your brain tells you you can use this to give missions. Mm-hmm. And you end up buying a lot of unnecessary things because you don't really have a mission trip planned, but your brain is telling you it's cheap. And I think even with the whole commercial world, that's how they get people who are weak in those areas. They see the price is 50%, but in reality, the price was jacked up, and then you're not really getting a good deal, but your brain is trying to convince you it's a good deal, and you end up spending all this money on unnecessary things.
True. And then sometimes we end up picking on each other. Maybe one of the person is a really good budgeter, a good person knowing how to manage money, and the other hasn't quite learned it yet. Unhealthy way would be really pushing that person down and saying you can't do anything and never giving them an opportunity to grow in that area.
Yeah.
I think for yourself, you've really showed me how to grow in that area of finances. Would you say?
I think so.
Yeah. You can take that one.
I can take that one. Another weak area in relationship I see is having a sense of pride when you go with friends and family, even though you don't have the money, you are volunteering to pay for the whole bill. And I know I'm very guilty of that, only because once upon a time, not having a lot and seeing how God has blessed me in terms of the career path, I feel sometimes like it's an honor to give, and we all need to have a heart to give, but you cannot give out of foolishness. You have to give out of faith, as the Lord speak into your heart. And also you need to use wisdom.
You don't give just because of other people or what they think, right?
Or wanting other people to think good of you.
Right.
Because we cannot be in control of what people think about us, but we can be in control of how we think about ourselves.
That's
right?
good. That's good.
And learning to set some of those boundaries for ourselves really will help us to control the financial aspect of our lives, of how we can move forward. But there are so many unhealthy ways that I'm sure you watching today, you can say, yeah, this is unhealthy, this is unhealthy. One of the unhealthy things too, I think, is couples not realizing there's a difference between a need and a want.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah. Because you see things on sale and you think it's a great deal, but it's not really. You may have like 10 pair of pants in the house already, so it's not really a need, it's a want. Or it just looks really good on that person and you want it too, but it's not a need.
Or taking all these vacations when in reality, you know, the budget is not there.
Right.
So it's creating something. It's more of a want. There's a need for vacations, but you cannot, you know, in my culture, they say you cannot hang your heart where you cannot reach. And that simply means you don't push yourself to the place where you know it's more of a foolishness rather than faith.
Right.
And we don't live in presumptions either. Right. So when we talk about the unhealthy things, obviously there has to be some healthy stuff.
Well, there's a lot of good healthy things to help. And one of them is budgeting. I mean, that's some word, you just hear that word, you think, oh, so much work. And that's what I think when I think of budgeting. And I'm not the best budgeter, but I've been learning a little bit more about budgeting and learning to see how we can spend and save our money wisely. It's very important.
Yeah, I agree with you. Setting a budget is so important of weighing your income and your expense. And I think as believers, sometimes we throw in the card that we need to have faith, but there is faith and there's foolishness and there's also presumptions. You know, sharing the story earlier on about an income of $22,000 a year and paying a mortgage of $1,700 plus utilities plus insurance and car, and also taking care of the family with the children and us. Being faithful in the little things and being faithful to the Lord in terms of bringing your tithes into the storehouse and sowing seeds, because we know the principle of sowing and reaping is God's policy, I would say, in terms of how he, what he has established. Every seed that is sown can bring forth a harvest. Right. But sometimes we get so caught up with the faith aspect or think it's faith, but really it's foolishness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we need to stretch our faith. We need to stretch and believe God and not to cheat God when God impressed upon our hearts. But on the other side of it is we need to know it's God speaking to us, not guilt or manipulation.
Right. A lot of things you got to think about.
There's a lot of things you got to think about. You know, I still remember like when we came back from Croatia, we were missionaries in 1994 to 1997 during the war in Croatia. And we came back and I had a $20 bill. That's all I had, nothing more and nothing less. And the morning I woke up, I went to the kitchen and I felt the Lord put in my heart to give the $20 bill as an offering. And I said, it cannot be. $20 bill. And I asked Kathleen, and Kathleen says, you got to do whatever the Lord says. And so during the service now, the offering bucket was passing by, and I felt the same nudging in my heart. I need to give this to the Lord. And I said to myself, maybe God is telling me to take $20 bill from the offering bucket rather than give, because, you know, at that time we had 4 children and we had no income. We just came back from the mission field. But I put the $20 bill, and because it was so deep in my heart, it was so impressed in my heart. It was not of manipulation. It was not of obligation. It was simply God put in my heart. And at the end of the service, the pastor calls me and says, hey, Harrison, I can't meet you at the 6 o'clock service. And I thought, whenever the pastor calls, it's in trouble, but I'm going to go anyways. And so I went to service at 6 o'clock and went to his office. And he said, you know, like, I've never done this in my life, but I really felt I would like to give you a check of $500 that the Lord put in my heart to give you. Now, when you sow out of obedience, God is going to bless you. And that's what the blessing, how the blessing has come about. And it was enough to pay our mortgage and get our feet on the ground. But $500 was like a $5,000 bill or more to me. But couples who are struggling with their finances, couples who are struggling in having communication when it comes to the difficulties in finances, the question is, how do you handle this?
Mhm.
And we're going to take a short break, come back, and we're going to tell you what the 90-10 rule is, because it worked for us.
Mhm.
It's worked for our children who are married, and it's worked for a lot of the clients that we see that we thought we want to share it with you today. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
At Team2, we believe in the power of connection. Because 2 is always better than 1. Through therapy, workshops, and retreat, Team2 gives couples the tools to heal, grow, and build lasting love. Join us in saving relationships, strengthening families, and restoring hope. Donate today, because love is worth fighting for.
Love is a journey, not a destination, but a discovery. At Team2, we walk with you every step, guiding love forward. Here, every story matters, and every step forward brings light to love. Because stronger connection is the heart of every lasting relationship. Connect with Team2 today, because 2 is better than 1.
Well, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed those short commercials. So as we're coming to the close of our show, what is 90-10? And 90-10, what we have learned is that our brain is programmed to be able to be more of a 10-90 versus 90-10. And simply as in conflict, we project more 90% of all the negative things that we see in a relationship. We sometimes have verbal diarrhea, as you may say, where people just divulge how they're feeling and pick on everything, and they micromanage, as I shared about me being one of those in the past. But 90-10 is learning how to condition your brain that every conversation you have, 90% should actually be more on a positive, optimistic mindset.
Mhm.
And the 10% needs to be what you're addressing. So when it comes to conflict resolution and talking about financial struggles, you need to remind yourself, as long as you are in a relationship, and whether you're just starting a relationship, young or old, there will always be differences in opinions. There will be differences in character and personality in how you deal and manage your money. You don't want it to become a problem. So if you want to get the brain to think 10% is what you want to address in terms of the problem, and 90% more on loving each other. Because the ultimate goal of Team2, one of the key factor is building strong relationship so that people can focus more on having a strong love in the relationship rather than always addressing the problems in the relationship. If I want to say to you watching me right now, not to think of pink donuts, what are you going to do? You're going to be thinking of the pink donuts. And the enemy sometimes have us so focused on finances and the struggles of finances. It doesn't matter how rich you are right now watching me, or how poor you are watching me, or I should say how not so rich watching me. Everybody goes through the struggle of finances, because the more we have, the more we want to spend, the more we want to give, the more we want to donate. We want to do more when we have more, and the financial struggle continues in a cycle. But when we learn that it can be a trap of the enemy to bring discord in relationship, to bring conflict in relationship, then we have to come up with a proper way of handling it. So as an example would be, if Kathleen goes out and she decides to spend, she goes to one of those grocery stores and spend $500, and I know the budget is only $300 as an example, instead of making it such a heavy conversation, if our conversation is 10 minutes about whatever it may be, 10% should be about that, and 90% should be how grateful I am, and share gratitudes and be able to bring love into the relationship. So when you leave that conversation, the brain is not focused on the problem. The brain is focused on, my spouse really loves me, or walks about with something more on a positive nature.
So you would say that you bring the 10% first and then bathe it with the 90%. Is that what you would do?
You can do that depending on how the conversation go, but you cannot allow 90% to be focused on the problem.
Right.
Because then you create a pathway in the brain where now you have scarred the emotions that I cannot even buy things that I feel was a good deal, or
Right.
when I thought I was doing something good for us, I got criticized about it. It should be more like, next time maybe we can work on a lighter bill and focus more on something more on a positive nature.
Right.
And we have seen, in the practice as well as in some of the conference when we have these seminars talking about these finances and bringing out the 90-10 rule, not just on finances. I think in problems in general is leave a good taste in people's mouth.
That's good.
You need to care about the nature of God, right? And I don't see Jesus go around talking about the problems that people pointing fingers at people.
Right.
He always brings a very light atmosphere, something more in a positive nature.
And solutions, always
And
with solutions. Yeah.
And that's the key. So your couple today watching our show, I want to remind you today that some of you watching and say, hey, I wish I can have some therapy. And there are some of you, or maybe go on a retreat and learn about these strategies. And there are some of you are saying, I really like what Harrison and Kathleen is talking about. We want to give you the opportunity to donate today because we really believe in couples and building strong relationships. And we want to be able to sponsor some couples and take them on retreats and do more teaching on these different obstacles that has come about, that is breaking relationship and destroying families. We believe that we're in a time and age where we can help one another.
Very much so. We'd love to be able to help in what we've learned through our journey together.
Yeah. And, all of the strategies and tips that we have learned, we want to bring it on the table. If you're wondering how you can get more information about what we're talking about, you can write to us, you can email us. You can also get a copy of this book that has those strategies on conflict resolution. It's on Amazon. We want to be here for you. So we're looking forward to see you on the next show coming up, where we're going to talk more about conflict resolutions and some strategies that we have learned that has helped couples around the world. God bless you, and we'll see you again soon.